Barbara's played a key role in one of IBM's flagship programs on project management. So let's talk about that. Why was it so important for IBM to integrate content that addressed the people component of what is often thought of as a technical or hard skill like project management?
Mike, as part of IBM's project management certification program, I had an honor to be asked to be a part of it. And I saw firsthand IBM's commitment to project management. Since IBM considers itself a project-based business, it was very key to make sure we were addressing not just the very technical capabilities of our employees, because we're known as a technology company, but to make sure that we had the soft skills or the relationship part of leadership covered. And this was really done as a business decision. One of the emphasis on leadership and soft skills has to do with some of the research that's been done by the Hay Group. It used to be called the Hay Mike Beer Group, but currently it's the Hay Group International. Their research supports that good leadership not only can have a significant performance advantage, but that this advantage sometimes can be as much as double the output of a average or demotivating environment team. What that means is the organizational climate within which a team performs can have up to a 30% difference in its output, whether those are products or services. And this is key. The leadership style of the people in charge, the project manager, the project leaders, the team leaders, has a 70% impact on that climate. So it's not just a nice thing to do to have people happy, but it's about both people and profits.
Absolutely. Uh, Barbara, project management, like so many other workplace initiatives, requires teamwork and collaboration above everything else. In other words, it's a team sport. How does the SDI enhance the collaborative skills of project teams? We talked just a moment ago about the impact that leaders and that organizational climate play in boosting performance, getting the results you're looking for. But how do we get people to work better together on these teams? And what role did the SDI play for you in that experience?
I think it's important for us to recognize that, yes, project management is a team sport. And although I haven't played on a sports team, I've played on a project management team and with great results. One of the things that we've learned, the project manager is like a coach. They've got to recognize the key strengths of a player and know where best to fit them into this unique performing entity. There were two gentlemen, John Katzenbach and Douglas Smith, who did what I call the basics about research and team performance. And in their model on performing teams, the type of work groups that are a part of any organization, that we have to look at that team performance curve in order to see where on the curve a team exists. The project manager is the one that encourages their growth and development along this performance curve, and it's only when a team trusts each other and trusts each other not just to get the job done, but that each person is going to be successful individually, then the team will be successfully individually. That would be the commitment personally and the commitment to the goals of the project that gives us what we call a high performing team.
And how does the SDI? You're a master facilitator of the SDI. What is it about the SDI and the learning that comes from the SDI that actually helps people build trust with one another?
Trust is about believing the uniqueness and genuine nature of another individual. And the SDI, when teams especially take it together, they see what their internal motivations are as they relate to another person, and they also can see the motivational value system of the other individuals on the team. Their interactions then are based on a truth that trial and error in meeting other people does not give us. So operating on that, and as you see in this slide, operating on that, Katzenbach and Smith found that real teams have developed that trust and know each other in a way that allows them to commit to each other. Performing team on there is a rare commodity. It doesn't exist often.
And so what I was hearing from the message I was taking away from that is that the SDI seems to be able to accelerate the climb up this performance impact curve, this team performance curve, because otherwise it takes time, trial and error. Um, we get to know people over weeks, over months, over years, but what I think you're saying is that the SDI speeds that process up. And in projects that are high stakes, we've got to move quickly. We don't have a lot of time to develop relationships in an organic way. We've got to find ways to accelerate that process. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Absolutely. I think that the key thing is we tend to see the behaviors of an individual. And as we're working in such close quarters and sometimes chaotic environments, it's important to have clues as to what's going on with an individual. If one can have the SDI results, the motivational value appreciation of team members, it does accelerate that. And not only that, it helps the team to perform trusting each other, as I've used the words before. Trust is key.
Would you recommend, Barbara, that teams beginning new projects? Now, you worked in a program that trained project managers. Did you recommend to your project managers who were in your sessions that the SDI should be part of the starting point for teams coming together? Was this something that you recommended?
I almost didn't have to recommend it. The acceptance and impressions that learners got when they completed the SDI, it was something they recommended immediately, and we did quite a bit in the first stages of the project's development, or the first cycle of the project. So these things, I hate to say it, but they sold themselves. The SDI sold themselves, and this forming stage of project management, as we'll talk about a little later, is the best way and the best time to do it, very, very early on.
Let's shift to let's start talking about team leadership, project leadership. So how does the project leader get the most out of each team member? We talked about trust and how everyone needs to work together, the team nature of projects. Now you're the captain of the team, you're the leader of the team, and one of the common models that are often that's often used and taught widely. A lot of companies have specific training initiatives around situational leadership, and whether it be um, Hershey's flavor, Blanchard's flavor, the essence of the model is the same. So how does the SDI, and I know you did as well at IBM, how does the SDI add value to the situational leadership model?
The situational leadership model that Ken Blanchard shares in his book, Leadership in the 1-Minute Manager, is actually content in one of our advanced leadership courses. And basically what he talks about is cautioning any leader to think that there is a best leadership style, because the situation and the individual should determine what style we use. The SDI helps the leader in being flexible enough to know, to be aware of what a team member or individual's needs are, is by looking at the strengths, being able to see and experience in a conversation, multiple conversations with another individual, what their strengths and values, what's important to them. By knowing then that, it enables a leader to follow this curve that Ken Blanchard represents in terms of he calls it follower development level, but it's really a team member's needs, and those are highlighted, I think, very, very confidently for a leader by using not only the SDI in combination with the situational leadership. It becomes a win-win for both the leader and the learner or the team member.
It seems that the SDI helps the leader, helps the manager be able to target more precisely the way in which they're going to serve their follower, their team member, because with the SDI, we know the motives that are driving that behavior. We know what the person wants, and so when we sit down with them to give them feedback, to coach, to be directing or supporting or delegating, there's a particular way to do that that makes us more effective based on what we know about them if we know their SDI results. Is that kind of what you're saying?
That's exactly. I couldn't have put it any better. Thank you.
All right, so let's shift gears here to something that is real in any organization. It's real in projects. It's based on any sort of team, no matter what the team is, and it's conflict. In my experience, interpersonal conflict can be one of the primary reasons projects fail and teams struggle. The SDI, and in my opinion, the SDI and relationship awareness theory teaches us more about conflict than any product on the market. So in your experience, how did the SDI help your project managers better understand and deal with conflict?
I think it all goes back to some of the basics, Mike, and for those of you responsible for other teams and any initiatives, conflict is inevitable, but it is also valuable. And there is a distinction that we make, Mike, between opposing ideas, approaches, which is really that conflict that helps us come to solutions that meet the needs of the many. There is a model which talks about the development of any team or any team group that works together. It's the Tuckman model of team development. In the Tuckman model of team development, uh, the second stage of any group's development is something called the storming stage. And in project management, we see that very soon after the project is formed. And so that conflict must be effectively dealt with in order to move on to the next stage, which is norming and then performing. It's so key that some teams, if they don't deal with conflict effectively, they can, and I hate to say this, they can die there. The performance output can be minimal. And they say, well, it's interpersonal matters. We can't work together. What the SDI does, because it not only gives us motives behind behavior, but it helps to see what is so valuable to an individual that they're willing to go into conflict over it. And value-based conflict is personal. It is the hardest to resolve, and if one knows what's important to another individual, then it can help us not only get closer, but to have a resolution of conflict that meets the needs of both parties and is truly a win-win. So feeling a threat to self-worth is what conflict in the relationship awareness theory is about. And the SDI helps team leaders recognize that and resolve it more quickly to the benefit of the team and the project.
I think that's right on. And I think it's important to create that distinction in people's minds around the difference between opposition, when people have legitimate disagreements about approaches or
Yes.
ways of doing things, and when it becomes personal, when one's self-worth is threatened, and that's conflict. Opposition can be a very productive time for any team. That's where innovation comes from. New ideas, breakthrough moments come out of opposition, but conflict can have a very different effect on a team. And I think the lesson for me here is that it's critical that people on these teams understand the difference and they know how to work with both. And the SDI gives us some insight on how to do that. You've talked about several models here, Barbara. We've talked about Katzenbach's team performance curve. We've talked about situational leadership. We've talked about Tuckman's model of team development. And most of the people on this webinar today are familiar with those models. And if they're in the learning space, they've probably taught those models at some point. They've worked with them. But these models all sort of come together. They're aligned in your mind. They support one another, and the SDI is right in that mix as well. Could you speak to that?
Yes, in fact, the article that everyone will receive is actually based on several aha moments that I had over the 10 years that I have been teaching the leadership curriculum for project managers. In fact, the project managers seem to feel that the relationship awareness theory and the SDI bring all the models together because the peak or the goal, the place where all teams would love to be is where the relationships are at their strongest, commitment to the project it is at its strongest, and guess what? The highest performance optimized by those relationships. I've taught these courses, and there are several leadership courses within the curriculum that have the SDI in them. But I've taught these courses from Boston to Bangalore, Tokyo to Tel Aviv, and many, many, many points in between. And project managers are equally impressed with the SDI. I think the most impressive thing about it is how quickly they're able to validate their results and to apply what they're learning. I had one learner, and this is quite literally a true story. The learner jumped up in the middle of an SDI exercise. We'd only been about an hour into SDI, and he jumped up and shouted, "He's a red and I'm a green, a blue-green." He'd been having problems with a client and just couldn't resolve them and thought that the project was actually doomed. But in the middle of this SDI session, he said, "We are speaking different languages." It seems, I don't know, almost like a fairy tale to me that a project of the size he was dealing with, that the next morning he came in with a huge smile, and on his face everybody recognized some kind of reveal. He said, "Not only am I staying on the project, but I think it can be a success." I'd like to fast forward to today. Um, when we think of the relationship awareness theory and the SDI, all of the models have a certain set of strengths that are called upon for us to get the most out of what's happening in that stage of the development of the team. And in this case, the learner was able to capitalize on where he was in the project, what was happening with a key client. And as I said, today the project was a success for both IBM and the client. The red client and the blue-green project manager today keep in touch and have a great relationship. And today the company is thriving in their marketplace. For this project, I, I know the SDI made a critical difference, and not only made a critical difference, but I recognize, and I'm sure you recognize, that when we say project, sometimes we're talking about the difference between demise and survival of a company. In our economically challenged environment and competitive environment, we have to do things differently. We have to look for the additional incremental performance of each team member and every person within our companies. Thanks, Mike.
Well, that's a great story, and I think it just demonstrates the point quite well that relationship and results do go hand in hand. And it also, while you were telling the story and gave the example of the person jumping up with this revelation, a revelatory pronouncement there, um, I think anyone who's done the SDI more than once or twice can tell a similar story. And that's what's so great about working with these tools is that you can almost see the light bulbs go on over people's heads. And for any sort of facilitator, learning leader, boy, there's nothing better when you see the lights go on like that. So I think now would be a good time to shift to some
Absolutely.
to shift to some questions. And we've had a few come in. Bobby, our producer over here, has been handing them to me faithfully. And one question, Barbara, for you is that it sounds like you did this program globally. Are there any cultural issues one should be aware of when using the SDI outside of the United States?
In my experience, the SDI, like, I don't know, any globally sensitized materials, to me, the SDI has already been tested in so many environments that I was even surprised at the similarity and consistency between learners worldwide. I've been doing this worldwide and multicultural team building for many years. And I think that the caution that I would give anyone would be a general travel caution. No matter where you're going, no matter who or what culture you're going to interact with, there should be some planning and knowledge of the culture. So um, that goes without saying. But for the SDI, wow, multicultural, very, very similar in the acceptance. So I would say no cautions other than the ones you would take to go to any country and interact with any culture.
Great, great response. Next question that we have is how much time in your program, your IBM program, was devoted to the SDI or the soft side of project management, leadership, relational skills, in terms of a percentage of time or just a general comment about that would be helpful.
I don't think I can give you an actual percentage that I could just calculate, but the uh, project management certification program is a very extensive program in IBM, and the education component of that consists of anywhere from 12 to 15 courses. Three key courses in that curriculum are leadership, and they have the SDI as a component. And from a timing standpoint, 1 of 3 days is committed to the SDI, but I would make the comment that there is reference from other courses back to the SDI just to ensure that we are talking about using all the tools and all the skills and experiences that a project manager has to use. And the SDI and what it has given them is worthy of application and referral.
Our next question is around fast changing situations. I would imagine that the conditions under which a project works, a project moves forward, a leader leads are constantly changing. New requirements, budget cuts, team members come and go, lots of changes. So the question more precisely is, how do you as a project leader lead when the situation can change so frequently, and does the SDI help with that?
You have summed up a project environment very, very well. And I think because, well, I know because of the hectic, fast changing team members, sometimes requirements, stakeholders, it's important at the very, very beginning of a project to get to know the team, to assign responsibilities. And one of the things that's done in the very first part of the project and is worthy of the SDI is the team charter, which helps us to determine how we will work with each other. And that's where the I think, has a lot of strength because it helps us to know each other and the roles and responsibilities before we get into the heat of the project, and we can refer back to what we've learned with each other and our rules of engagement, which would include the values related to the SDI. So I think, wow, my preference would be to do the SDI initially and to use it and refer back to it as you go through the project. I
Great.
hope I answered your question.
You did, and I think that's actually all the time for questions we have at this point. A couple more have come in, but I'm going to honor the commitment of time people have made. So let me shift gears here and make everyone aware of how they can begin powering their learning with the SDI. Barbara, you've been a great ambassador for both IBM and the work you did there, and also how the SDI was integrated into that work. So let me tell others how they can do that in their organizations. The first step is to become SDI certified, SDI Level 1 certified, and this is a 2-day professional training that prepares you to administer and facilitate learning with the SDI self-assessments. During this course, you will learn how the SDI can enhance your work with individuals and groups, as well as equip you with the skills, resources, and confidence to begin the SDI the very next day. So we have 3 remaining SDI Level 1 certification courses this year, and they're on the screen there. And we also have 2 remaining SDI Level 2 courses for those who are already SDI Level 1 certified. And the investment to attend either of these courses is only $1,400. And if more than one person from the company attends, then we offer a 10% discount. And it's also important to know that if you need CEU credits, continuing education credits, a number of professional associations, there's too many to name actually, do offer CEU credit for attending our SDI Level 1 certification course. So if you need credit, inquire about it with your account manager. Now, for those on the call who are already SDI Level 1 certified, I'm really excited to announce a special value bundle of learning materials that we're making available at a deeply discounted price between now and the end of the year. And the list of products we're offering in this package are listed on the screen, and it includes the new Working with the SDI book and Learning Journal. And these products just came out. We launched these at our conference in August, so they're only about 6 weeks old, hot off the press, you might say. And we're getting great feedback on these two resources. And if you haven't seen them yet, you need to at least get a review copy and take a look, because they're great new tools, and we're getting a lot of good feedback on those. And probably the best deal we've ever put out there is the fact that we're putting almost $75 worth of materials in this value bundle and making it available to you for only $50 if you're willing to buy 50, if you're willing to invest in the relationship at the level of 50. So I would encourage all of you to take advantage of this great value and speak to your account manager about that. So this has been fun. Thank you for participating today. We will have our next Power Your Learning webinar at the end of the month. It's a Halloween special event for us, where I'll be interviewing Jay Spock, who was the Senior Vice President of Organizational Development for Thomson Reuters, one of the world's largest media companies. And he's going to share with us how he used the SDI in his OD work over a 20-year career. So as we close, Barbara, I owe you a great debt of gratitude. You are great, and sharing your experiences. Again, I invite everyone to join us in the next call at the end of October. And until then, I wish you well and wish everyone a great day.
Thank you, everyone.